Now, after the Gupta wedding, did you continue to go to the Gupta residence in Saxonwold?
Yes, we did.
How often would you go there?
We will go maybe during the week or weekend. It will depend.
Then what you do at paragraph 22 is you explain the procedure that would be followed each time you attended the Gupta residence. Please explain that. Tell us about the procedure. How did it work practically?
So every time when you come in, there's security, which is our protectors. So they will tell their protectors, because there were a lot of protectors outside who will be there, and they will tell them that we're here, and they will open, and one of them will take us in the house, and then someone will come and call AJ, and then someone will come, maybe offer us some drinks or something. Then later AJ will come and talk to us. So mostly it was like that all the time.
So can I just ask you?
Just 1 second. The transcribers, can you hear the witness well? Okay, all right. Okay.
Ms. Gigaba, do you
continue.
mind? I'm actually struggling to hear you. Can you speak a little bit louder? I can't see your
Try and speak up a bit.
Because you guys exhausted me, so I'm so tired.
All right. So you were saying that AJ would arrive. Just explain how that would work.
Say that again?
When you went to the Gupta residence, you gained access into the house or the residence. You mentioned that AJ would then arrive.
Yes.
Okay. And what would happen then?
Then he will greet us. If we are just there, only for a visit, so we'll sit with him, we talk. But if it's a meeting, he will come, brief Malusi about something, they will go in the meeting, then I will stay in the room, at the lounge.
And would you have your cell phone with you?
No, but sometimes I will go fetch my cell phone.
Okay. What happened with your cell phones when you went to the Gupta residence?
They always ask us to leave them at I think it's like a foyer, and then we will go leave them there. And then later, I will go take my phone when I'm bored, if I'm bored.
And who would you see when you went to the Gupta residence?
Say that again.
Who would you see? Would you see other people you knew when you went to the Gupta residence?
The only people I saw, it was AJ, his wife, his brother, his son, Tamim saw me, and Sabanga Matlangu. They are the only people that I saw.
So Mr. Msomi, you've told us about. Mr. Matlangu, who was he?
Say that again.
Who was Mr. Matlangu?
He was Malusi's legal advisor.
And where would these meetings be held between AJ and Mr. Gigaba?
They will be in the opposite room from the lounge.
Did you ever ask Mr. Gigaba why you had to turn in your cell phone?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say?
Because he said some of the information was confidential, so we had to leave our phones. But it was not something was strange for him, because most of the time when I call him, his phone will be answered. Maybe Wesley is at work. His phone will be answered by his PA. Or maybe when they're in the NEC, they will leave. For him, it was the nature, but for me, I didn't understand why must I leave my phone.
Now, you've mentioned to us that you saw Mr. AJ Gupta, Mr. Matlangu, and Mr. Msomi.
Yes.
There. Did you see anybody else attending meetings?
No. But I knew that they were inside, because you can hear the voices of people in the room. And when AJ will come and brief him, I know that there will be people. But I don't want to say who was it, because I've never seen them.
And when you went to the residence, did you sometimes find cars already parked there?
Yes, there were a lot of cars.
What sort of cars?
Cars similar to our cars, which is like state cars.
Okay. How did you know they were state cars?
Because of the blue lights at the front, and also the bodyguards, because most of them, they dress the same, and the car, they mostly similar. It's either I don't know how to explain the nature of the cars, but it's similar, most of the cars.
Now, you've mentioned that when you went to the Gupta residence, AJ would meet with you and he would hold discussions with Mr. Gigaba, and then they would go off to the meeting room. What sorts of things would be discussed in your presence between Mr. AJ Gupta and Mr. Gigaba before they went for a meeting?
It was not discussion, it was like briefs.
Right.
He was briefing him, not like discussion.
And what was AJ Gupta briefing Mr. Gigaba about? What was the sorts of things that he briefed him about?
So sometimes you will brief him about the SAA, or you will brief him about Transnet, or a certain meeting that they will talk about, so that he's aware before you go to the meeting.
And can you remember what was discussed or what was briefed in relation to Transnet?
Most of the time in Transnet, it will be the people that AJ feels like they need to be appointed or need to leave, or maybe they're restructuring. And maybe they will just argue a little bit about it, because Malusi has his own favorites of people and AJ has his own favorites of people.
And what did you hear about SAA?
SAA, most of the time, they will, when he's with AJ, they will be talking about the board. So he will be asking him about the board, or maybe Kalawa, because there was a lot of discomfort between Malusi and the chairperson of SAA. So sometimes they will discuss that.
Which chairperson of SAA are you referring to?
At that time, Monwabisi Kalawa was the CEO, then Tutumieni was the chairperson, and I think Malusi liked Monwabisi Kalawa, and Tutu didn't like him. And they will have those arguments most of the time.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
And during these briefing sessions, did you ever hear any mention made of Eskom?
Yes.
And what was said about Eskom?
There was a time Mr. Brian Damas was the CEO of Eskom, and what I remember, Malusi liked Brian Damas, and there was a certain time then the Guptas didn't like him, especially AJ. Let me not say Guptas, because it was most of the time was AJ, and AJ didn't like him. So he will say, Brian Damas needs to resign. He was uncomfortable about certain things, but he will be talking to him, not to me. And then Malusi liked Brian Damas. I think even myself, I liked him.
All right. And then, was there ever a time where Mr. Gigaba held a discussion with you about Mr. Damas?
Yes.
What did he say?
He told me that the Guptas don't like him, and he doesn't understand why they don't like him. And I think they told him that there will be a new restructuring, someone else will move to Eskom, and then Brian Damas will leave. But I didn't know how the process is going to happen, which few months later it happened.
All right. These visits to the Gupta residence, how long would they last for usually?
Hour to 2 hours, but not more than that.
An hour to 2 hours?
Yes.
Then at page 1005, you deal...
I'm sorry, Mr. Mybeck. I just want to make sure that I understood this. Paragraph 26 of your affidavit.
Yes.
You say at some stage Mr. Gigaba told me that Mr. Ajay Gupta wanted him to get rid of Mr. Brian Dames. Having met Mr. Dames, I asked Mr. Gigaba why, and he said that the Guptas do not like Mr. Dames because there are things that Mr. Dames was supposed to do but did not do.
Yes.
That's correct. Is
Yes.
it correct?
Yes.
Okay.